From armor to authenticity, how our past shapes our relationships. I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with Melissa Chester recently, and what she shared about relationships didn't just leave me speechless, it fundamentally altered how I understand human connection. Melissa isn't just a relationship expert, she's a visionary who has dedicated her life to helping women recognize their worth and break generational patterns of accepting less than they deserve. Her work has literally saved marriages, restored self worth, and quite possibly changed the trajectory of entire family lines. The wisdom she shared was so profound that I knew immediately it needed to reach beyond our conversation and find its way to this stage, to you. Have you ever wondered why that strong, capable woman in your life, maybe it's you, suddenly became distant in relationships? That woman who once led with her heart, who gave freely and loved deeply, now keeps everyone at arm's length. The transformation is often so subtle that we barely notice it happening, like water slowly eroding stone, until one day the landscape is unrecognizable. She didn't start that way. No woman is born with walls. We build them brick by brick, betrayal by betrayal. The statistics tell us something profound is happening in our relationships, particularly for Black women. Over 70% of Black women in America are unmarried. And contrary to what some might believe, most aren't single by choice. There's a deeper story here, one that Melissa illuminated with such clarity about how our backgrounds shape not just who we love, but how we love. When I interviewed Melissa, she explained that many Black women, particularly those who've been the reliable support for others, tend to accept less than they deserve in relationships. This isn't because they don't know their worth, it's because they've been conditioned to prioritize others' needs above their own. Think about it. How many times have you watched a brilliant, accomplished woman, someone who dominates in her career, manages her finances impeccably, and shows up powerfully in every other area of life, completely lose herself in relationships? How many times have you been that woman? We don't arrive at guardedness by choice, Melissa told me, leaning forward with intensity in her eyes. We arrive there through experience, through learning, often painfully, that our softness isn't always honored. The transformation from softness to guardedness doesn't happen overnight. It's the slow evolution, a response to repeated experiences of betrayal, disrespect, or simply being let down time and again. It's the relationship equivalent of calluses forming on tender skin and instant, a natural protection against recurring pain. Let me share something that might surprise you. According to recent data, approximately 42% of Black men and women have experienced divorce. That's nearly half of all marriages ending. But what's even more telling is what happens before those marriages even begin. Only 30.5% of Black Americans are married, compared to 52.2% of white Americans. These aren't just numbers, they're stories. Stories of expectations shaped by background, of patterns learned and repeated, of hearts that have learned to protect themselves. During my interview with Melissa, we explored several fascinating trends that illuminate this phenomenon in powerful ways. First, there's a remarkable shift happening with younger generations. Millennials and Gen Z are approaching marriage differently than their parents did. They're delaying marriage until after 25, focusing first on education, career, and financial stability. And the data suggests they might be onto something profound. Marriages that begin after age 25 have a 75% success rate over 10 years. That's remarkable. Marrying after 25 lowers divorce likelihood by 24%. Why? Because these individuals have had time to develop emotionally, to understand themselves, to recognize patterns before they become barriers. We're seeing young people prioritize self knowledge before partnership, Melissa explained. And that's revolutionary. You can't know what you need from someone else until you know who you are. This shift has contributed to the overall decline in divorce rates across the country from over 10 per 1,000 women in 2008 to 7.1 in 2022. Taking time for personal development before marriage leads to healthier, more sustainable relationships. But there's another side to this story, one that speaks directly to the experiences of many Black women. The significant disparities in marriage rates across different racial groups in America tell a complex tale. The statistics are stark. Only 30.5% of Black Americans are married, compared to 52.2% of white Americans. These numbers reflect complex historical and social factors, economic disparities, incarceration rates, and changing social norms that disproportionately affect Black communities. But they also reflect something more personal, the experience of repeatedly giving your all only to receive the minimum in return. As Melissa explained, many Black women find themselves caught in this cycle, accepting less than they deserve because they've been conditioned to be the strong one, the reliable one, the one who makes it work no matter what. And over time, this pattern takes its toll. The strongest women often accept the weakest relationships, Melissa said, her words landing like thunder in a quiet room, not because they don't deserve better, but because they've proven they can handle worse. Then there's the phenomenon of gray divorces, divorces occurring later in life, often after decades of marriage. Recent statistics show that 62-year-olds have the highest likelihood, 41.6%, of being divorced, separated, or married multiple times. Only 42.3% remain in their first marriage. These aren't just cold numbers, they represent women and men who reached a breaking point after years of accepting less than they deserved. Many enter marriages with different expectations and fewer options than today's young adults. After years of compromising or accepting mistreatment, they eventually reached a point where they were no longer willing to continue. This trend represents a significant shift in how people view marriage, not as a permanent institution, regardless of quality, but as a relationship that should continue to provide mutual support and respect. What Melissa helped me understand is that these later life divorces often serve as powerful examples to younger generations about the importance of maintaining standards throughout relationships. They show us what happens when we ignore the warning signs, when we push down our needs, when we accept less than we deserve for too long. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. Understanding how our upbringing shapes our tolerance for mistreatment can help break cycles before they lead to relationship breakdown. Recognizing patterns is the first step toward changing them. During our interview, Melissa shared a powerful affirmation that has stayed with me. My boundaries are not walls, they're the foundation upon which healthy love is built. Think about that for a moment. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out, they're about creating the conditions under which real intimacy can flourish. When we understand this, we can begin to see that the guardedness many women develop isn't a character flaw. It's a protective mechanism. And with awareness, with support, with new tools, that protection can evolve into something healthier: discernment. There's a world of difference between being guarded and being discerning. Guardedness comes from fear, discernment comes from wisdom. Guardedness keeps everyone at a distance. Discernment allows you to determine who deserves proximity to your heart. As Melissa so eloquently put it, softness isn't weakness, it's a strength that requires the right environment to flourish. So, what does this mean for you? If you're a woman who's found yourself becoming more distant in relationships, more protective of your heart, I want you to know you didn't start that way. Something happened, maybe many somethings. And your response, that guardedness, was your mind and heart's way of protecting you. But protection that becomes prison isn't serving you anymore. The question becomes, how do we move from armor to authenticity? How do we create relationships where softness can safely exist? It starts with recognition, understanding that your background, whether it's being the reliable one in your family, witnessing unhealthy relationships, or experiencing betrayal firsthand, has shaped your expectations in love. Then comes the harder part: examining your patterns. Are you accepting less than you deserve because of your background or past experiences? Have you normalized behavior that should be unacceptable? Melissa challenges us to identify one boundary we need to establish or reinforce in our current relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional. Remember that setting healthy boundaries isn't being difficult. It's an act of self respect that ultimately leads to more authentic connections. And finally, it requires community. Surrounding yourself with people who model healthy relationships, who support your growth, who remind you of your worth when you forget. Because here's the truth that will set you free: no woman is born distant. No woman naturally starts relationships cold or guarded. These are learned responses to pain, and what is learned can be unlearned. I want to leave you with this challenge today, inspired by my profound conversation with Melissa Chester. Look at your relationships, all of them, with new eyes. Ask yourself, where am I accepting less than I deserve? Where have I built walls instead of boundaries? Where have I forgotten my own worth? Then do something revolutionary. Choose one relationship to transform, not by changing the other person, but by changing how you show up. Set one boundary, express one need, honor your worth in one small way. Because when you begin to honor yourself, you change more than just your relationships, you change the world. You create new possibilities for your children, your friends, your community. You become living proof that love doesn't require sacrifice of self. And that, my friends, is how we heal, not just ourselves, but generations to come. That is how we move from armor to authenticity. That is how we reclaim our right to be both strong and soft, powerful and vulnerable, protected and open. The journey begins with a single truth: you deserve love that doesn't hurt. Everything else follows from there.